Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a question that's, it's really buzzing in wellness circles. Could changing when you eat be maybe more important than what you eat? We're plunging into intermittent fasting, or IF. It's this practice of cycling between eating and voluntary fasting. And it's gained some serious momentum for weight loss and general well-being.
It really has. And it's fascinating, isn't it? While it feels like a very modern dietary hack, the actual idea, the core concept of fasting, it's ancient.
Ancient how?
Well, think way back. 5th century BC, Hippocrates apparently used fasting to help treat illness.
Wow.
And it's still a really significant practice in many religious traditions today, like in Islam, for example.
Right. So our mission today is to really get under the skin of intermittent fasting. We want to explore the different methods people are trying out, unpack the potential benefits everyone's talking about, and really crucially highlight the important things to consider if you're thinking about trying it yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get that comprehensive picture, we've looked at quite a range of sources for this deep dive. We've got beginner guides to sort of lay the groundwork.
Okay.
Articles that go into specific techniques like the popular 168th method.
Noted that one.
Right. And also scientific perspectives on how it impacts weight management, and even some material from the Body Key weight management program, just to see how it might fit into a sort of broader health strategy.
Okay, so let's start with the basics then. What is intermittent fasting, really? Because it's not just like another diet telling you to eat more spinach, is it?
Yeah, that's a great point. It fundamentally shifts the focus. It's less about what you're eating and much more about when you're eating it.
Gotcha.
The basic definition. It's intentionally restricting or abstaining from eating either completely or partially during very specific planned periods. It's about creating these deliberate breaks.
Deliberate breaks in your eating schedule. Okay, so how does that actually work in practice, like day to day or week to week?
Well, the core idea is choosing. You either choose specific days for fasting or you set up daily windows of time where you don't eat.
Right.
And for a lot of people, just doing that pattern, it naturally leads to eating fewer calories overall.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. As Heather Bauer, she's a registered dietitian nutritionist, explains it, IF involves these planned breaks from eating. But she also wisely points out
What's that?
that while it works great for some people, it is definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of deal.
That seems fair. And this dropping calories, is that kind of the main driver behind why it might work for weight loss, according to the experts?
That seems to be a big part of it, yes. Caroline Susie, another RDN, she emphasizes that this calorie reduction is often a primary factor. It drives not just the weight loss, but potentially some of the metabolic benefits people see too.
Okay. Now, intermittent fasting, it sounds like one thing, but you mentioned different methods, so it's not just one plan.
Exactly. You're absolutely right. It's really more of an umbrella term. It covers a whole variety of dietary approaches. Krista Varady, she's got a PhD and is a big researcher in this area. She points this out too.
Okay, interesting. So what are some of these different types then?
Right. Let's break down the most common ones. First, there's alternate day fasting.
Alternate day.
Yeah. The most common way this works is you significantly cut your calories, down to maybe 500 calories or so every other day.
Every other day?
Yeah. And then on the days in between, the feast days, you generally eat without any specific restrictions.
500 calories is not a lot. That sounds pretty tough on those fasting days.
It can be, yeah. It's definitely one of the more intense versions.
Okay, what else is there?
Another popular one, maybe particularly in the UK, is the 5.2 diet.
5.2, like the ratio.
Exactly. So with this plan, you eat very few calories again, around that 500 mark, but only on 2 days each week. And crucially, those 2 days shouldn't be consecutive.
Okay. So not back to back.
Right. And then on the other 5 days of the week, you just eat your normal diet.
Okay, so 2 very low-calorie days spread out through the week. And the third main type, you mentioned something about timing within the day.
Yes, that's time-restricted eating, often called TRE.
TRE, got it.
This is where you choose a specific window of time each day, say 8 hours during which you'll eat all your food, and then you fast for the remaining hours of the day.
So like the 168 method I've heard about.
Precisely. That's probably the most well-known example of TRE. 16 hours of fasting followed by an 8-hour eating window.
Okay, so someone might eat, say, only between noon and 8 p.m.
Exactly, or 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., or whatever 8-hour block fits their life. That noon to 8 p.m. is pretty popular because essentially just means skipping breakfast but still having lunch and dinner.
Right, just cutting out that morning meal for many people.
Yeah.
Okay, so those are the main ways people do IF. Now, the big question, why bother? What are the potential health benefits people are hoping for?
Yeah, that's what everyone wants to know. But it's really crucial to start this part with a bit of caution.
Okay.
While there's a lot of buzz and excitement, the really solid long-term studies in humans, well, they're still a bit limited. A lot of the claims you see flying around online, as Caroline Susie reminds us, are actually based on animal studies.
Right. Mice aren't people.
Exactly. So we need to be a little careful about assuming the long-term safety and effectiveness for us just yet.
That's a really important disclaimer. Okay, but with that in mind, where is IF showing some promise? What areas look interesting?
Okay, so one area is heart disease prevention.
Heart health. How so?
Well, a review looking at the research suggests IF might help improve several key risk factors, things like obesity, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and problems with blood sugar that can lead to diabetes.
So it might nudge those numbers in the right direction.
That's the idea. It seems like timing our eating strategically might push the body towards, better lipid profiles, maybe better blood pressure, almost like hitting a reset button for some of those cardiovascular risks.
Interesting.
And it's a key, but researchers are still trying to figure out which type of IF might be best for heart health. The jury's still out on that.
Makes sense. Different methods could have different effects. What about blood sugar? That's a huge concern for so many people.
Yes, absolutely. Managing type 2 diabetes is another area being actively explored.
And why might IF help there?
It seems promising, mainly because it often helps with weight loss. Plus, it might improve something called insulin sensitivity.
Which is how well your body responds to insulin.
Exactly. When sensitivity is low, your body struggles to use blood sugar effectively. IF might help improve that. And it could also positively affect hormones related to appetite and inflammation.
Okay.
But, and this is non-negotiable, anyone with diabetes must talk to their doctor before even thinking about trying IF.
Why is that so critical?
Because skipping meals can seriously mess with blood sugar levels. It could lead to hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar. It's just not something to experiment with on your own if you have diabetes.
Got it. Absolutely crucial advice. Okay, what else is on the potential benefits list? Anything related to the brain?
There is some early research suggesting IF might help fend off Alzheimer's disease and stroke.
Really? That's significant.
It is, potentially, yeah. But again, a lot of this understanding currently comes from animal studies. We don't really know the best timing to start IF for these kinds of neurological benefits in humans.
So early days on that front.
Very early days. And also, despite what you might read on some blogs, IF doesn't really seem to be a quick fix for boosting focus or other cognitive skills in the short term.
Okay, good to know. Promising signals for long-term brain health, maybe, but more human research needed. What about other organs, like the liver?
Interestingly, yes. There was a meta-analysis looking at people with something called metabolic dysfunction-associated steatotic liver disease, or MASLD. It used to be called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, NAFLD.
Okay, fatty liver disease.
Right. And they found that people with MASLD who practiced I showed improvements in their liver function tests compared to those who didn't fast.
And why was that?
Researchers think it's largely down to the weight loss that often comes with IF.
Ah, weight loss again.
Yeah, it seems to be a common thread. But again, the researchers stress we really need more large-scale human studies to be sure about this.
Okay, so it seems like weight loss itself might be driving quite a few of these potential downstream benefits. Let's dig into that specifically. How does IF actually help with weight loss?
Well, the fundamental idea is pretty simple, actually. By limiting your eating to fewer periods, whether that's fewer hours in a day or fewer days in a week, you just naturally tend to eat fewer calories overall.
Just fewer opportunities to eat, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Dr. Krista Varadi's research, for instance, has found that time-restricted eating often cuts out several hundred calories per day for people.
Without them even trying to count calories.
Often, yes. And she's observed this typically results in losing about 1 to 2 pounds a week, which is Interestingly, pretty similar to what people achieve with traditional daily calorie restriction, but potentially without the hassle of meticulously tracking everything you eat.
That does sound appealing.
Yeah.
Are there specific studies backing those numbers up, like the 300 fewer calories you mentioned?
Yeah, one of Dr. Varadi's studies showed that people using an 8-hour eating window consumed about 300 fewer calories daily and lost around 3% of their body weight over 12 weeks.
Okay, 3% over 12 weeks. And what about the alternate day fasting? Does that lead to more?
It seems like it can, yes. That approach could potentially cut your weekly calories by a lot more, maybe 25 to 35%.
Yeah.
And the weight loss observed was higher too, around 4 to 6% of body weight over those same 12 weeks.
Wow, okay, so potentially faster results with alternate day fasting. But I imagine it's maybe harder to stick to.
That seems to be the trade-off, exactly. A review looking at several studies concluded that IF, especially that alternate day fasting, does seem more effective than just a regular diet for reducing BMI in people who are overweight or obese.
Right.
However, as Dr. Varadi points out, while it might give you quicker initial results, sustainability is a real issue. Her research found a much higher dropout rate for alternate day fasting, like 30 to 40% of people stopped,
Compared to?
compared to only about 5% dropout for time-restricted eating in her studies.
Big difference.
Huge difference. So the key takeaway is, yes, it can work for weight loss, maybe even faster with some methods, but we still need more long-term data, like looking at results over 1 or 2 years, not just 12 weeks or 6 months.
Right. Because sticking with something for a few months is one thing, but making it a lifestyle is another challenge entirely. Okay. Now, anytime you change your diet, your body has to adjust. Are there side effects people might experience when they first start IF?
Yes, definitely. Caroline Susie outlines some common ones beginners might run into. Things like headaches,
Right.
fatigue, just feeling low on energy, maybe feeling more irritable.
Hangry.
Exactly. Hangry. And of course, hunger itself. These happen because your body isn't getting food when it expects it, and it can definitely affect how you feel day to day, especially at the start.
Yeah, I can imagine. Headache and fatigue don't sound fun.
No, and it's important to acknowledge that, these initial side effects might just not be worth it for some people. It's okay if someone tries IF and decides, nope, this isn't for me.
Fair enough. So these initial discomforts, how long do they usually last? Is there an adjustment period?
Dr. Varadi's observation suggests that hunger specifically tends to peak in the first, say, 10 days or so.
Okay.
And then for most people, it usually starts to decrease as their body gets used to the new eating pattern.
Good to know there might be light at the end of the tunnel for the hunger pangs. But beyond those initial discomforts, are there any more significant health risks people need to be aware of with IF?
Yes, absolutely. There are certain groups who should really avoid intermittent fasting altogether.
Okay, who are we talking about?
Heather Bauer strongly advises against it for anyone who is pregnant or breastfeeding. Your nutritional needs are just much higher during those times.
Makes sense.
Also, if you have a low BMI, meaning you're underweight, or if you have any history of eating disorders, IF is not recommended.
Right.
And Dr. Varadi also suggests caution for adults over 70.
Why over 70?
The concern there is potential muscle loss. Fasting could possibly accelerate that, and preserving muscle mass is really important as we get older.
Good point. And we mentioned diabetics earlier, but it's worth repeating, isn't it?
Absolutely, 100%. If you have any type of diabetes, you must talk to your doctor before considering IF. The risk of low blood sugar, hypoglycemia, is just too significant.
It could be dangerous.
Very dangerous. Dizziness, fainting, falls. It's serious. And also, one more group. People taking certain medications.
Like ones that need to be taken with food?
Exactly. If you're on medication that has specific timing requirements and needs to be taken with food, you have to discuss that with your doctor to see how or if IF could fit in safely.
Okay, so the bottom line is talk to your doctor first, especially if you have any underlying health conditions or take medication. Absolutely critical.
Couldn't agree more.
Now, let's say someone has talked to their doctor, they've gotten the green light, and they're thinking, okay, I want to try this. What are some practical tips for getting started? How do you set yourself up for success?
Right. Good question. There are definitely some helpful strategies. First off, decide on the type of IF. Which approach seems like the best fit for your life and your goals?
Okay.
If, say, significant weight loss is the main initial goal, Dr. Varadi suggests alternate day fasting might give faster results early on.
Right, the more intense one.
But remembering that the sustainability issue we talked about, maybe the plan is to start with that, then transition to something like time-restricted eating for the longer term, which people tend to find easier to stick with.
Ah, okay, like a phased approach.
Yeah.
Start strong, then settle into maintenance. What's next?
Second, if you're going for time-restricted eating, set your eating window. Heather Bauer suggests tailoring this to you. Are you naturally not hungry in the morning? Maybe start eating at noon.
Like the example earlier.
Exactly. Noon to 8 p.m. works for many. Or maybe you prefer eating earlier. 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. could work. Find the 8-hour block that fits your schedule.
And what if even 168 feels like too much at first?
Good point. Bauer also suggests maybe starting with just a 12-hour overnight fast. Say, stop eating at 8 p.m. and don't eat again until 8 a.m.
That sounds more manageable.
It's often a more natural pattern anyway. It helps stop late-night snacking, might lead to some modest weight loss, and can even help with things like heartburn or sleep issues if you tend to eat too close to bedtime.
Okay, so starting gently is an option. What about planning? Does that help?
Oh, definitely. Tip number 3, plan your fasting days strategically, especially if you're doing 5.2 or alternate day. Well, remember those side effects like irritability or fatigue. Caroline Susie points out it's probably wise to not plan a fast day on the day you have a massive presentation at work, right?
Good call.
Or if you have a big family dinner or social event where food is central, trying to fast might be really difficult or awkward. The key is fitting IF into your life, not making your life revolve around IF.
Makes total sense. Integrate, don't dominate. Okay, what about the food itself during the eating times?
Absolutely critical. Tip 4, still reach for nutritious foods.
So IGAF isn't a magic pass to eat junk food during the eating window.
Definitely not. Heather Bauer stresses this. You still need to focus on getting your vitamins and minerals. Think lean protein, lots of fiber, fruits, vegetables, healthy fats, maybe lower glycemic foods.
So quality still matters a lot.
A huge amount. And also, super important, drink plenty of water all day long. Dehydration can make side effects like headaches worse. You might also notice you pee more often when you first start IF.
Good reminder on the water. Okay, any other tips for newbies?
Yeah, number 5. If you're doing time-restricted eating, remember to be flexible with your window. You don't have to stick to the exact same hours every single day.
Wow.
Like if you normally eat noon to 8 p.m., but you have weekend brunch plans at 10 a.m., just shift your window for that day. Maybe do 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. It allows you to live your life.
That flexibility sounds key for making it last long term.
Okay, and the final tip? I bet I can guess.
Huh. Probably. Tip 6. Consult a healthcare professional.
Knew it.
It bears repeating. Caroline Susie strongly advises getting guidance from a registered dietitian nutritionist, especially if you have any underlying health conditions. They can really help personalize it and make sure it's safe and effective for you.
Absolutely. Expert guidance seems essential here. Okay, so we've covered the general ideas and types. Let's zoom in a bit more on that really popular one, 168 intermittent fasting. Remind us of the core details.
Sure. So 168, just to recap, means you limit eating and drinking anything with calories to an 8-hour window each day. Then you fast for the other 16 hours. And during the fast,
Water, plain black coffee, plain tea, basically 0-calorie drinks are fine. And people might do this just once or twice a week, or they might do it every day. It depends on what works for them.
and it seems really popular. Why do you think it's caught on so much?
Well, people often find it relatively simple and convenient. It feels less restrictive than some other diets. Proponents talk about it being good for weight loss, fat burning.
I discussed that.
Right. Also improved blood sugar control, and potentially even promoting longevity, though. Again, the human evidence for longevity is still pretty limited. But mostly, I think it's seen as easier to fit into a normal lifestyle compared to, say, counting calories all day or having full fasting days.
Right. The structure is simple. And you mentioned the different windows people use, like noon to 8 p.m. being popular for skipping breakfast.
Exactly. Or 9 to 5 for people who prefer eating earlier. The key is finding that 8-hour block that meshes well with your work, your social life, your energy levels. Some people even set phone reminders initially just to help them stay on track with their window.
That's practical. And what about the food within that 8-hour window for 168? Same advice as before. Focus on quality.
Absolutely, 100%. To get the most potential benefit, you really want to fill that window with nutrient-dense whole foods. Fruits, veggies, whole grains, healthy fats like olive oil or avocados, good protein sources, lean meat, fish, eggs, beans, lentils, nuts, seeds.
Usual suspects for healthy eating.
Pretty much. And stay hydrated with those calorie-free drinks. It also really helps to limit the ultra-processed stuff, packaged snacks, deep-fried foods, sugary drinks, most frozen dinners. Those can kind of undermine the whole effort.
Okay, so convenience and flexibility are big pluses for 168. What are the other specific benefits people point to for this method?
Well, beyond convenience, potentially saving time and money on food prep,
Good point.
it can, as we said, lead to weight loss for some due to that potential calorie reduction. Research does suggest fasting in general can boost weight loss.
Mm,
Studies also link 168 specifically to better blood sugar control, lower fasting insulin, and blood glucose levels. This could potentially lower the risk of type 2 diabetes.
okay.
And then there's that longevity angle. Animal studies hint that IF might extend lifespan, but we really need more human research to confirm that.
So promising benefits.
Mm-hmm.
But what about the downsides or challenges specific to 168? Are there any potential pitfalls?
Yes, definitely things to be aware of. One is the risk of overeating during the 8-hour window.
Ah, the feast mentality after the famine.
Exactly. Some people might feel like they need to compensate for the fast and end up eating way more than usual or choosing higher calorie foods. This could actually lead to weight gain, digestive issues, or just unhealthy eating habits.
Right, so it's not automatic weight loss.
Not at all. And it's worth remembering, research doesn't clearly show IF is better for weight loss than just overall calorie restriction. If you create a calorie deficit, you'll likely lose weight either way.
Good context. What else?
Those short-term side effects we mentioned, hunger, weakness, fatigue, can definitely happen when starting 168, although they often do get better as your body adapts.
Okay.
And then there's the hormonal aspect. Some older animal research suggested potential effects on menstrual cycles or fertility in females due to hormonal changes or undereating. We need more human studies here for sure. Interestingly, though, for postmenopausal women, IFF might actually have some benefits, potentially helping with insulin sensitivity or weight management.
Complex picture on the hormone front. So overall, 168, is it a good fit for most people? Who should maybe steer clear?
Well, for many healthy adults, 168 can be a sustainable, safe, and pretty easy approach, especially when it's part of an overall healthy lifestyle with a balanced diet.
Mhm.
But it's definitely not required for good health.
Right.
And it's not a replacement for eating nutritious food. The who should avoid its list is similar to what we discussed before. Definitely talk to your doctor first if you have underlying health conditions, take medications, have diabetes, low blood pressure, or a history of disordered eating. And it's generally not advised if you're trying to conceive, are pregnant, or breastfeeding because of those higher nutritional needs. And of course, if you try it and have persistent side effects that bother you, definitely check in with your doctor.
Makes sense. Prioritize safety and listen to your body. Now, shifting gears slightly, some of our sources also covered broader principles of just weight management and body composition in general. Why is managing weight so crucial for health?
It's absolutely fundamental. Being significantly outside a healthy weight range, either underweight or overweight obese, really increases the risk for a lot of health problems.
Like what?
Well, being overweight or obese raises the risk for things like cardiovascular disease, stroke, metabolic syndrome, hormone issues, joint problems, even gallstones.
Okay. And underweight?
Being underweight carries its own risks: fatigue, hair loss, weakened immune system, osteoporosis, fertility problems. So it's really about finding that healthy balance.
And the balance comes down to energy, right? Calories in versus calories out.
That's the core principle, yes. Energy balance. If you consistently burn more calories than you eat a calorie deficit, you lose weight. If you consistently eat more than you burn calorie surplus, you gain weight. And if they're roughly equal over time, your weight stays stable.
Got it. And there are tools doctors use to measure this stuff, right? Like BMI.
Exactly. BMI, body mass index, is a common starting point relating weight to height, but it doesn't tell the whole story.
What else is important?
Things like body fat percentage, what proportion of your weight is actually fat. Also, waist-to-hip ratio and visceral fat index give clues about where you store fat, because fat around the organs, visceral fat, is particularly risky.
Okay.
Then there's BMR, basal metabolic rate, the calories you burn just existing at rest, and TDEE, total daily energy expenditure, which account for your BMR plus all your activity.
And TDEE is often estimated using something called PAL.
Right, physical activity level. It's basically a multiplier based on how active you are. Someone sedentary might have a PL of 1.2, while a very active athlete could be 1.9 or higher. You multiply your BMR by your PL to get an estimate of your daily calorie burn, your TDEE.
Okay, that helps understand those terms. And the sources mentioned ways to estimate ideal weight or fat mass.
Yeah, there are general formulas often used as rough guides. For men, sometimes ideal weight is estimated as 22 times height in meters squared. For women, maybe 21 times height in meters squared.
Rough guides, though.
Very rough. And ideal body fat percentages are often cited around 15% for men, 23% for women. These help gauge if someone needs to lose or gain fat mass. There are also concepts like adjusted body weight, used in some clinical settings.
And just quickly, the calories from our main food groups, carbs, protein, fat.
Right, carbs and protein are both about 4 calories per gram. Fat is more dense, about 9 calories per gram.
Okay, so when we talk about managing weight healthily, it's clearly more than just counting calories, isn't it? It's about the whole picture.
Absolutely. A balanced, nutritious diet is key. Regular physical activity is huge. But also managing stress, getting enough sleep, having a positive mindset, establishing regular eating habits, it all plays a role.
It's holistic.
Very much so. And just as a rule of thumb, a deficit of about 7,000 kilocalories usually equates to losing roughly 1 kilogram or 2.2 pounds of body weight. A surplus of the same leads to gaining about 1 kilogram.
And what's a healthy rate for weight loss or gain?
For sustainable weight loss, aiming for 0.5 to 1 kilogram per week is often recommended. That means a daily deficit of 500 to 1,000 calories. For healthy weight gain, maybe 0.25 to 0.5 kilograms per week with a surplus of 250 to 500 calories daily. But always making sure calorie intake stays above your BMR and generally not below 1,200 calories a day.
Right. Need enough energy for basic functions.
Yeah.
And setting goals, there was a mention of the SMART framework.
Yes. SMART goals. Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. It's a really effective way to set clear, achievable goals for weight management or really anything health-related.
Great framework. Now, thinking about specific programs, if someone is using or considering the Body Key program, how might IF fit in? Or how does Body Key approach weight management?
Okay, so Body Key, based on the materials, is positioned as a pretty comprehensive consultation process. It starts with things like health surveys, body measurements.
Hitting a baseline.
Exactly.
Then-
Understanding where the person is starting from, and then working with them to set realistic weight goals. Then it involves introducing the Body Key products and solutions.
Like shakes and supplements.
Right. Protein powder, fiber, meal replacements, various vitamins and supplements. The program provides advice on diet changes, using the products, incorporating exercise, managing lifestyle factors, and there's a focus on tracking progress and handling setbacks.
And it sounds like there's a sales or consultation framework involved too.
Yeah, the materials mention things like the 3S from the heart and the ADA formula, focusing on building trust and meeting the client's needs. Preparation for those consultations is also emphasized.
And how do the Body Key products themselves fit into this? What's their role supposed to be?
They're presented as tools to support a healthy diet and weight goals. So, protein powder for muscle support, fiber for fullness and gut health, meal replacements for convenient calorie control, and the various supplements like XX, omega-3, etc. to help fill potential nutrient gaps.
Okay.
But it's always important to remember these are food supplements. They're not meant to treat or cure any disease.
Got it. Good context for Body Key. Now, we also had a glimpse into a real person's IF routine from a video transcript. Can you give us the nutshell version of how they did 168?
Sure. This person followed a 168 schedule, fasting generally from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. the next day.
So skipping breakfast.
Yep. In the morning, they focused on hydration water, sometimes with lemon and black coffee. They mentioned staying busy during the fast helped manage hunger.
Makes sense. Distraction helps.
Then they'd break the fast at noon with a balanced lunch protein, healthy fats, veggies, complex carbs, plus vitamins or supplements, maybe a small snack later, and then a similar balanced dinner before 8 p.m.
And they emphasize quality food during the eating window.
Absolutely. Lots of nutrient-dense foods. And they allowed calorie-free drinks during the fast, listened to their body, and sometimes adjusted the window slightly if needed for social plans or how they felt.
That sounds like a practical, lived-in example of making 168 work.
Yeah.
Okay, our sources also gave a quick rundown of even more IF plans out there. What else is on the menu, so to speak?
Yeah, besides alternate day, 5.2 and 168, there's lean gains, which is often a slightly tighter eating window, maybe 8-10 hours.
Okay.
There's eat, stop, eat, which involves a full 24-hour fast once or twice a week.
Whoa, 24 hours.
Yep. Then the warrior diet, which is pretty extreme, a 20-hour fast with just one large meal in the evening.
Intense.
And the Dubrow diet, which uses different interval eating windows, 12, 14, or 16 hours, depending on which phase of the diet you're in.
Wow, okay. So many variations on the theme. And some sources listed more general benefits of IF, beyond just weight or specific diseases.
Yeah, some other potential pluses that came up. One was the simplicity of just having one schedule to stick to, rather than worrying about specific allowed foods all the time. It can feel less restrictive mentally for some.
Focusing on time, not just content.
Also, the idea that you might savor meals more, maybe helping balance appetite hormones. Some suggest it helps kick cravings for sugary or fatty foods by limiting late-night snacking and boosting satiety hormones.
Interesting. Anything else?
Potential anti-aging boosts were mentioned, maybe linked to human growth hormone or cellular repair processes, helping pre-diabetics manage blood sugar through improved insulin sensitivity, busting through weight loss plateaus by encouraging that metabolic switch to fat burning, and even potential links to reduced cancer risk, possibly via apoptosis or programmed cell death, and improved heart health markers again. Lots of potential areas being looked at.
Quite a list.
Yeah.
But of course, important to balance that with potential downsides. Any other side effects mentioned across the sources?
Well, besides the irritation and tiredness, which might relate to blood sugar dips,
Right.
dizziness or lightheadedness also came up. This could signal hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, that can also cause fatigue, shakiness, sweating, things like that. So people prone to low blood sugar or on diabetes meds really need to be extra careful and monitor things closely with their doctor.
Definitely. And just to hammer it home, who really shouldn't be trying IF based on all these sources combined?
Okay, the consistent warnings are: avoid IF if you have a current or past eating disorder. Avoid it if you're pregnant or trying to conceive. And avoid it if you take medications that must be taken with food at specific times unless you've explicitly cleared it with your doctor.
Clear warnings. So, assuming someone isn't in those groups and has consulted their doctor, what was the final advice on how to actually start?
The #1 piece of advice, repeated everywhere: talk to your doctor or a registered dietitian first. Make sure it's right for you.
Okay, doctor first. Then what?
If you get the go-ahead, the 168 method is often suggested as a good starting point because it's generally more accessible. The key then is figuring out which 8-hour window fits best into your life.
Find your rhythm.
Exactly. And just be mindful of potential bumps, like maybe caffeine during the fast messing with your sleep, or the social challenges of sticking to a specific eating time long term.
Right, real-world challenges. Okay, let's try and wrap this all up. We've covered a lot of ground. The big picture is intermittent fasting is about when you eat, not just what you eat.
Though the what's is still super important for your actual health, definitely.
Right. And we've seen there are many ways to do it: alternate days, 5.2, time restricted like a 168, even more niche ones like the warrior diet.
A whole range of approaches. And we've touched on potential benefits for weight, blood sugar, heart health, maybe even brain health and cancer risks down the line. But emphasizing that the research is still evolving, especially on long-term effects.
Absolutely. Need more long-term human studies. And crucially, we've highlighted the need to be aware of side effects, the irritability, fatigue, dizziness.
And those key groups who should steer clear: pregnant or breastfeeding women, those with eating disorder histories, underweight individuals, possibly older adults needing to preserve muscle, and definitely anyone with diabetes not under medical guidance.
And the absolute, cannot stress this enough, first step if you're even thinking about it.
Oh, your doctor or a qualified healthcare professional. Get personalized advice to see if it's safe and suitable for you and figure out the best way to approach it if it is.
Perfect summary. So for you listening, as you think about all these methods, the potential upsides, the cautions, what parts of intermittent fasting resonate with your own health goals or lifestyle? And what other questions does this deep dive leave you with? Something to chew on? Until next time, thanks for tuning in.